Welcome to the Dragonlance Saga Gaming Advanced Dungeons and Dragons episode. This is the 6th in the series. It is Braca, Holmes Wealth the 19th, and my name is Adam. Dragonlance came out of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, so I thought it'd be fun to read through the core rules aloud and discuss them with the live audience. I'd like to take a moment and thank my collaborator patrons, the heroes of the Lance, and invite you to consider becoming a patron or member of this channel by visiting the links in the description below. You can even pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link. We are on the 7th level spells for clerics from the Player's Handbook. This is page 52, if you happen to be following along for whatever reason. It is incredibly hot outside right now, so I'm trying my best to stay cool in my house. I just worked in the yard, ran some errands with the wife. Now I'm sitting down with a glass of bourbon. I thought, why not just spend some time reading? Some of these spells are really kind of quirky and fun. I don't know. It could be fun. So let me know if if we run across any of the spells that have any particular meaning for you, or if you just want to, I don't know, call out anything you want to call out in the chat. You're welcome to. We can have a bit of a back and forth. Okay, 7th level spells, starting with Astral Spell Alteration. By means of the astral spell, a cleric is able to project his or her astral body into the astral plane, leaving his or her physical body and material possessions behind on the prime material plane, the plane on which the entire universe and all of its parallels have existence. Only certain magic items which have multi-planed existence can be brought into the astral plane. As the astral plane touches upon all of the first levels of the outer planes, the cleric can travel astrally to any of these outer planes as he or she wills. The cleric then leaves the astral plane, forming a body on the plane of existence he or she has chosen to enter. It is also possible to travel astrally anywhere in the prime material plane by means of the astral spell, but a second body cannot be formed on the prime material plane. As a general rule, a person astrally projected can be seen only by creatures on the astral plane. At all times, the astral body is connected to the material by a silvery cord. If the cord is broken, the affected person is killed, astrally and materially. But generally, only the psychic wind can normally cause the cord to break. When a second body is formed on a different plane, the silvery cord remains invisibly attached to the new body, and the cord simply returns to the latter when it rests on the prime material plane, reviving it from its state of suspended animation. Although astrally projected persons are able to function on the astral plane, their actions do not affect creatures not existing on the astral plane. The spell lasts until the cleric desires it to end, or until it is terminated by some outside means, dispel magic or destruction of the cleric's body on the prime material plane. The cleric can take up to 5 other creatures with him or her by means of the astral spell, providing the creatures are linked in a circle with the cleric. These fellow travelers are dependent upon the cleric and can be stranded. Travel on the astral plane can be slow or fast according to the cleric's desires. The ultimate destination arrived at is subject to the conceptualization of the cleric. See Appendix 4, the known planes of existence, for further information on the astral plane and astral projection. Man, that actually would make a really cool adventure scene, forcing maybe half of the party or a portion of the party to protect the astral travelers and force the cleric, along with maybe 1 or 2 of the other party members, to go experience, exploring the astral plane for some sort of, I don't know, bit of wisdom or knowledge from some astral body, and then have the party attacked. And so the attackers are trying to kill those astrally traveling, and those standing guard are trying to protect them, all the while that these astral travelers are out there trying to do their thing. It kind of reminds me of, I don't know, do you guys ever watch Avatar: The Last Airbender? It's this, I guess it's anime cartoon series. It's amazing. It's a fantastic animation series, short-lived, but really, really good. But, they have like this spirit realm that they travel to, which is very reminiscent of the astral realm here. Anyway, kind of interesting. The next is Control Weather, Alteration. The Control Weather spell allows a cleric to change the weather in an area he or she is in at the time the spell is cast. The spell will affect the weather for from 4 to 48 hours, 4d12, in an area of from 4 to 16 square miles, 4d4. It requires 1 turn to cast the spell and an additional 1 to 4, 1d4 turns for the effects of the weather to be felt. The Control Weather spell will not radically change the temperature, i.e. from below 0 to 100 degrees temperature heat wave. The weather control possible depends upon the prevailing conditions. So, clear weather to very clear or light clouds or hazy, partly cloudy weather to clear weather, cloudy, mist, light rain, small hail, sleet, or light snow, cloudy weather to partly cloudy, deep clouds, fog, heavy rain, large hail, driving sleet, or heavy snow. Hot weather to warm weather or sweltering heat, warm weather to hot weather or cool weather to warm weather or cold weather to cold weather or arctic cold, calm to dead calm or light breeze, light wind to calm or strong wind to light wind or gale, gale to strong wind or storm, and storm to gale or hurricane typhoon. All 3 aspects of the weather, clouds, participation, temperature, and wind can be controlled, but only as shown. For example, a day which is clear, warm, and with light wind can be controlled to become hazy, hot, and calm. Contradictions are not possible. Fog and strong wind, for example. Multiple control weather spells can be used only in succession. The material components for this spell are the cleric's religious symbol, incense, and prayer beads, or similar prayer object. Obviously, this spell functions only in areas where there are appropriate climactic conditions. That sounds like the most useless spell ever made. I can't really change the weather per se, but I can shift it by degrees. Give me a break. Why even bother? I don't get it. Earthquake, Alteration. When this spell is cast by a cleric, a local tremor of fairly high strength rips the ground. The shock is over in 1 melee round. The earthquake affects all terrain, vegetation, structures, and creatures in its locale. The area of effect of the earthquake spell is circular, the diameter being 1/2 for every level of experience of the cleric casting it, i.e. a 20th level cleric casts an earthquake spell with a 10, well this says inch diameter, but clearly I think they mean feet, area of effect. Effects are as follows. Terrain, caves or cavern equals collapsed roof. Cliffs crumble, causing landslide. Ground, cracks open, causing creatures to fall in and be killed as follows. Size small, 1 in 4 d4. Size medium, 1 in 6 d6. Size large, 1 in 8 d8. Marsh drains water off to form muddy, rough ground. Tunnel caves in. Vegetation, small growth, no effect. Trees, 1 in 3 are uprooted and fall. Structures, all structures, sustain from 5 to 60, 5 to 12 points of structural damage. Those taking full damage are thrown down in rubble. Creatures, see above. The material component for this spell are a pinch of dirt, a piece of rock, and a lump of clay. Gate. Level 7. Conjuring and Summoning. The casting of a gate spell has 2 effects. First, it causes an ultra-dimensional connection between the plane of existence the cleric is on and that plane on which dwells a specific being of greater power, the result enabling the being to merely step through the gate or portal from its plane to that of the cleric. Second, the utterance of the spell attracts the attention of the dweller on the other plane. When casting the spell, the cleric must name the demon, devil, demigod, or god, or similar being he or she desires to make use of the gate, and come to the cleric's aid. There is a 100% certainty that something will step through the gate. The actions of the being which come through will depend on many factors, including the alignment of the cleric, the nature of those in company with him or her, and who or what opposes or threatens the cleric. Your dungeon master will have a sure method of dealing with the variables of the situation. The being gated in will either return immediately, very unlikely, or remain to take action. It actually reminds me of the old 80s film, The Gate. Do you guys ever see that? hilarious. It was like these little kids, and it was, the height of the Satanic Panic. And so there's like this whole scene of this metal band record being played backwards, and like this eyeball in the kid's hand, and like these demons crawling out of his floor on the Gatesville. Pretty awesome. All right. Holy or unholy word. Conjuring, summoning. The utterance of a holy or unholy word has tremendous power. It drives off evil or good creatures from other planes, forcing them to return to their own plane or planes of existence. It further affects other creatures of differing alignment as follows. So the creatures hit, let me just show this to you rather than me just reading it here. You can see the creatures hit dice or level here, what generally happens to them, and whether it moves them, the attack dice, and the spells. Pretty interesting. Affects creatures must be within the 6-inch diameter area. 2 little quotes is inch, but I think they mean feet. Like that's 6 inches area of effect is ridiculous. Unless I have it backwards, which is entirely possible, but like 1 of those little hyphens is a foot and 2 of them is inches. So I don't know. Do you guys notice this? Is this just me? Do I have this totally wrong? All right, regenerate. Necromantic, reversible. When a regenerate spell is cast, body members like fingers, toes, hands, feet, arms, legs, tails, or even the heads of multi-headed creatures, bones, or organs will grow back. The process of regeneration requires but 1 round of its members severed is or are present and touching the creature, 2 to 8 turns otherwise. The reverse, wither, causes the member or organ touched to shrivel and cease functioning in 1 round, dropping off into dust in 2 to 8 turns. As is usual, creatures must be touched in order to have harmful effect occur. The material component of this spell are a prayer device and holy or unholy water. Talk about a power move. Just walking up to someone and like touching their sword arm, and it just shrivels off. I've never used this spell or had a DM use this spell in any game I have ever played. But now all I can think of is that I want to run a game just so I can use this spell. Just so I can find a reason. Just give me a reason to use this spell. That'd be awesome. Restoration. Necromantic. Reversible. When this spell is cast, the life energy level of the recipient creature is raised upwards by 1. This subsumes previous life energy level drain of the creature by some force or monster. Thus, if a 10th level character had been struck by a wight and drained to 9th level, the restoration spell would bring the character up to exactly the number of experience points necessary to restore him or her to 10th level once again, and restoring additional hit dice or hit points and level functions accordingly. Restoration is the only effective if the spell is cast within 1 day per level of experience of the cleric casting it of the recipient's loss of life energy. The reverse, energy drain, draws away a life energy level, such undead as specters, wight, or vampires, for example. The energy drain requires the victim to be touched. A restoration spell will restore the intelligence of a creature affected by a feeble mind spell. Nice. Resurrection. Necromantic. Reversible. The cleric employing the spell is able to restore life and complete strength to a person he or she bestows the resurrection upon. The person can have been dead for up to 10 years cumulative per level of the cleric casting the spell, i.e., a 19th level cleric can resurrect the bones of a person dead up to 190 years. This might explain why there's so many Freddy and Jason films out there. See Raise Dead for limitations on what person can be raised. The reverse destruction causes the victim of the spell to be instantly dead and turned to dust. Destruction requires a touch, either in combat or otherwise. The material components of the spell are the cleric's religious symbol and holy or unholy water. Employment of this spell makes it impossible for the cleric to cast further spells or engage in combat until he or she has had 1 day of bed rest for each level of experience of the person brought back to life or destroyed. Symbol. Conjuring. Summoning. The cleric casting the spell inscribes a symbol in the air or upon any surface according to his or her wish. The symbol glows for 1 turn for each level of experience of the cleric casting it. The particular symbol used can be selected by the cleric at the time of casting. Selection being limited to hopelessness, creatures seeing it must turn back in dejection and or surrender to capture or attack unless they save versus magic. Its effects last for 3 to 12 rounds. Pain. Creatures affected suffer -4 on to hit dice and -2 dexterity ability scores due to racking pains. The effect lasts for 2 to 20 turns. Persuasion. Creatures seeing the symbol become of the same alignment as and friendly to the cleric who scribed the symbol for from 1 to 20 turns unless a saving throw versus magic is made. The material component of the spell are mercury and phosphorus. For example, 8th level magic user, symbol spell. Windwalk. This is the last cleric spell we're going to go through, is Alteration. This spell enables the cleric, and possibly 1 or 2 other persons, to alter the substance of his or her body to cloud-like vapors. A magical wind that wafts the cleric along at a speed of up to 60 feet per turn, or as slow as 6 feet per turn, as the spellcaster wills. The Windwalk spell lasts as long as the cleric desires, up to a maximum duration of 6 turns, or 1 hour, per level of experience of the caster. For every 8 levels of experience the cleric has attained, up to 24, he or she is able to touch another and carry that person or those 2 persons along with Windwalk. Persons windwalking are not invisible, but appear misty and are transparent. If fully clothed in white, they are 80% likely to be mistaken for clouds or fog vapors, etc. The material components of this spell are fire and holy or unholy water. And that is the end of the cleric spell section. All right, how you doing, Ragnarok? Thanks for joining live. That's a great question if anyone else wants to answer it. I always thought mine was Dragons of Autumn Twilight until I read Dragons of Winter Night. Again, of course. And I think my favorite Dragonlance novel is the last one I've read. How about you? What's your favorite Dragonlance novel, man? All right, we are at Druid Spells. Let me throw this up here on the screen. Notes regarding Druid or Cleric spells. The religious symbol of Druids is mistletoe. I just sort of stopping the reading here. I didn't know that. Mistletoe is the religious symbol of Druids? Do they make out like all the time? Every person they meet, they just have to kiss. Maybe they're just European. They just do the double kiss on cheeks and they had to explain it away by carrying mistletoe. All right, the religious symbol of Druids is mistletoe. Of lesser importance is holly. Some magical power resides in oak leaves. All of the Druidic spells with a material component assume the use of mistletoe, as gathered by the Druid character in the manner described hereafter. Lesser mistletoe, as well as holly and oak leaves, will reduce spell effectiveness as follows. So I'm going to show you this little chart here. So we have the item, and we have the spell range, spell duration, and area of effect. So yeah, that's crazy that it affects that much. Huh. Okay. Greater mistletoe, that is mistletoe which is properly harvested by the Druid, must be gathered by the Druid as follows. On Midsummer's Eve, the Druid must locate his mistletoe, cut it with a gold or silver sickle, and catch it in a bowl before it touches the ground. Very specific. Lesser mistletoe is that which is not harvested on the eve of midsummer, or that which the Druid takes in a way which is not prescribed, such as picking by hand. Borrowed mistletoe is any mistletoe which is not personally harvested by the Druid. Holly and oak leaves must be gathered by the Druid, but these may be picked or gathered in any manner. I'm with you, Ragnaroks. That Twins trilogy was awesome. First level spells. Animal Friendship, Enchantment, Charm. By means of the spell, the Druid is able to show any animal which is of at least animal intelligence, but not above semi-intelligent rating, that the druid is disposed to be its friend. If the animal does not make its saving throw versus magic immediately when the spell is begun, it will stand quietly while the druid finishes the spell. Thereafter, it will follow the druid about, and he or she can teach it 3 specific tricks or tasks for each point of intelligence it possesses. Typical tasks are those taught a dog or similar pet, i.e., they cannot be complex. Training for each such trick must be done over a period of 1 week, and all must be done within 3 months of acquiring the creature. During the training period, the animal will not harm the druid, but if the creature is left alone for more than 3 days, it will revert to its natural state and act accordingly. The druid may use this spell to attract up to 2 hit dice of animals per level of experience he or she possesses. This also means that the druid can never have more hit dice of animals so attracted and trained that are equal to or less than twice his or her levels of experience. Only neutral animals can be attracted, befriended, and trained. The material components of this spell are mistletoe and a piece of food attractive to the animal subject. Detect magic, divination. Except as noted above, this spell is the same as the first level cleric spell of the same name. Detect snares and pits, divination. Upon casting the spell, the druid is able to detect snares and pits along 1 foot wide by 4 foot long area of effect path and thus avoid such deadfalls. Note that in the underground, only simple pits, not all forms of traps, would be detected by means of this spell. Outdoors, the spell detects all forms of traps, deadfalls, missile traps, snares, etc. The spell lasts 4 melee rounds for each level of experience of the druid casting it, i.e., 4 rounds at the first level, 8 at the second, 12, 1 turn plus 2 rounds at the third, etc. Entangle, alteration. By means of this spell, the druid is able to cause plants in the area of effect to entangle creatures within the area. The grasses, weeds, bushes, and even trees wrap, twist, and entwine about creatures, thus holding them fast for the duration of the spell. If any creature in the area of effect makes its saving throw, the effect of this spell is to slow its movement by 50% for the spell duration. Fairy Fire, alteration. When the druid casts this spell, he or she outlines an object or creature with a pale glowing light. The completeness of the lining is dependent upon the number of linear feet the druid is able to affect, about 12 feet per level, i.e., 1 6-foot man or 2 3-foot kobolds. If there is sufficient power, several objects or creatures can be covered by the fairy fire, but one must be fully outlined before the next is begun, and all must be within the area of effect. Outlined objects or creatures, including those otherwise invisible, are visible at 8 inches in the dark, 4 inches if the viewer is near a bright light source. Outlined creatures are easier to strike, thus opponents gain +2 to hit dice. The fairy fire can be blue, green, or violet, according to the word of the druid at the time he or she casts the spell. The fairy fire does not itself cause any harm to the object or creature lined. I've never actually used that spell. I mean, to be fair, I don't think I've ever really played with many druids in my different games, but that would be really helpful. Invisibility to animals, alteration. When an invisibility to animal spell is cast by a druid, the recipient of the magic becomes totally undetectable with respect to normal animals with intelligence under 6. Normal animals, including giant-sized varieties, but it excludes any with magical abilities or powers. The magicked individual is able to walk amongst animals or pass through them as if he or she did not exist. For example, this individual could stand before the hungriest of lions or a Tyrannosaurus Rex and not be molested or even noticed. However, a nightmare, hellhound, or winterwolf would certainly be aware of the individual. The material component of the spell is holly rubbed over the individual. What a strange scene you would have to be in to require your druid to just start rubbing holly all over your body so that you could then walk through animals. Kind of strange. Locate animals, divination. The druid with a locate animal spell is able to determine the direction and distance of any of the desired animals within the area of effect. The sought after animal can be of any sort, but the druid must concentrate on the sort desired. The cleric faces in a direction, I think they meant druid, thinks of the animal desired, and he or she then knows if any such animal is within the spell range. During a round of spell effect duration, the druid must face in only one direction. Only a 2-inch wide path can be known. The spell lasts 1 round per level of experience of the druid, while the length of the path is 2 inches per level of experience. Ragnaroks. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, to be honest, most of the authors, they were part of the entire development of Dragonlance throughout the entire series, from the modules to the formation of the actual world itself. So, I'm actually not really as specific as that when it comes to the different books. But I will say this. I always go to Margaret Weis and Tracy Hickman's books first, because I always refer to them as canon. If another author writes a story that contradicts any of the information that was released in any of the Weis or Hickman books, I always refer to that as a fable or a tale or a version rather than canon. You know what I mean? So that's always interesting. And it's also problematic, I might add, because as soon as you get into 2nd edition D&D, they're all written by other people. Most of them were written by people who were influenced or at least had some sort of direction with Dragonlance. But still, like Saga, that wasn't written by any of the Dragonlance crew from the OG, TSR days, or, early TSR days, I should say. So, and 3.5, as soon as it went right back to Sovereign Press and Margaret Weis Productions, went right back to canon. They tried to normalize all the different fables and stories and rules and stuff. But yeah, kind of interesting. Hey, Wave420, thanks for joining us. Nice. See, mine is a little bit mixed from your order. Mine is Dragonlance, Ravenloft, then Forgotten Realms. Though I didn't really do a whole lot of Forgotten Realms. I did a ton of Ravenloft, and just most of my youth was in Dragonlance. So. All right, Pass Without Trace. This is enchantment or charm. When this spell is cast, the recipient can move through any type of terrain, mud, snow, dust, etc., and leave neither footprint nor scent. Thus, tracking a person or other creature covered by its dweomer is impossible. The material component of this spell are leaf of mistletoe, which must be burned thereafter, and the ashes powdered and scattered, and a sprig of pine or evergreen. Note, the area which is passed over will radiate a dweomer for 6 to 36 turns after the affected creature passes. Predict weather. Divination. When a predict weather spell is cast by a druid, he or she gains 100% accurate knowledge of the weather, sky, temperature, precipitation, in a 9 square mile area centering on the druid. For each level of experience of the druid casting the spell, 2 hours advance weather can be forecast. Thus, at first level, the druid knows what the weather will be for 2 hours. At second level, he or she will know the weather for 4 hours in advance, etc. This has got to be the most useless spell ever. Predict weather. Just go look at the sky. I don't understand that. Purify water. Alteration. Reversible. This spell makes dirty, contaminated water clean and pure, suitable for consumption. Up to 1 cubic foot per level of the druid casting the spell can thus be purified. The reverse of this spell, contaminate water, works in exactly the same manner, and even holy or unholy water can be spoiled by its effects. Shillelagh. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Alteration. This spell enables the druid to change his or her oaken cudgel into a magical weapon, which is +1 to hit, and inflicts 2 to 8 hit points of damage on opponents up to man-sized, 2 to 5 hit points of damage on larger opponents. The druid must wield the shillelagh, of course. The material component of the spell are an oaken club, any mistletoe, and a shamrock leaf. Interesting. Speak with animals. Alteration. Except as noted above, this spell is the same as the 2nd level cleric spell of the same name. 2nd level spells. Bark Skin. Alteration. When the druid casts the Bark Skin spell upon a creature, its armor class improves 1 place because the creature's skin becomes as tough as, you guessed it, bark. I don't know why they do that. In addition, saving throws versus all attack forms except magic increase by +1. This spell can be placed on the druid casting it or on any other creature he or she touches. In addition to mistletoe, the caster must have a handful of bark from an oak as the material component of the spell. Charm person or mammal. Enchantment. Charm. This spell will affect any single person or mammal it is cast upon. The creature then will regard the druid who cast the spell as a trusted friend and ally to be heeded and protected. This spell does not enable the druid to control the charmed creature as if it were an automaton, but any word or action of the druid will be viewed in its most favorable way. Thus, a charmed creature would not obey a suicide command, but might believe the druid if assured that the only chance to save the druid's life is if the creature holds back an onrushing red dragon for just about a round or two. What? Note also that this spell does not empower the druid with linguistic capabilities beyond those he or she normally possesses. The duration of the spell is a function of the charmed creature's intelligence, and it is tied to the saving throw. The spell must be broken if may be broken if a saving throw is made, and this saving throw is checked on a periodic basis according to the creature's intelligence. So let me show you that here. The intelligence score and period between chalks, it says here. I've noticed a number of issues. How many people are editing these? And here's the other thing. This is a re-released version. So supposedly this has been edited again lately by Wizards of the Coast. Kind of strange. Not sure. I don't know. Am I the only one reading this all the way through? That's crazy, right? Chalks. If the druid harms or attempts to harm the charmed creature by some overt action, or if a dispel magic is successfully cast upon the charmed creature, the charm will be broken automatically. The spell affects all mammalian animals and persons. The term person includes all bipedal human and humanoid creatures of approximately man-sized or less than man-size, including those affected by the hold person spell. If the recipient of the charm spell or the mammal spell makes of the charm person or mammal spell makes its saving throw versus the spell, its effect is negated. Create water. Alteration. Give me a sec. My wife just texted me. Sorry, I had to break in here. Okay. Create water. The druid can create pure drinkable water by means of a create water spell. He or she creates 1 cubic foot of water for each level of experience attained. The water can be created at a maximum distance of 1 inch from the druid. Let's see here. Cure light wounds. Necromantic reversible. With the exception of the fact that the druid must have mistletoe of any sort to effect this spell, it is the same as the first level cleric Cure Light Wounds spell. Feign Death, Necromantic. Except as noted above, that spell of the same of the this spell is the same as the 3rd level magic user Feign Death spell. The material component is a piece of dead oak leaf in addition to mistletoe, of course. Fire Trap. I'm going to show you this image real quick because I love the illustrations. Just walked right into a fire. Every time I open my oven, that's what I feel like. Oh my gosh. This spell is the same as the 4th level magic user Fire Trap spell, except as shown above, and for the fact that the material components are holly berries and a stick of charcoal to trace the outline of the closure. All right, let's see. You missed TSR, don't care for Wizards of the Coast. Yeah, I'm a little all over the place with that because TSR ran their company to the ground. They tried to keep pumping out Dragonlance until it got to a point where the fans didn't recognize it as much anymore. And so, you know, they weren't the best caretakers, though you have to give TSR credit for creating it in the first place. Wizards of the Coast had the bright idea of subcontracting or licensing out the IP so that Sovereign Press or Margaret Wise Productions could then produce the Dragonlance material for that edition, which is 3.5, Dungeons and Dragons. And so I actually appreciated that they did that. But I am upset that they're not actually doing anything for the past 2 editions with Dragonlance, which is insane to me. So I think both companies had their up and down sides. And I think only because TSR allowed the creation of Dragonlance, that I think, I appreciate them a little bit more. I never read Draconian Measures. Trundle the Great? I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Thanks for joining live, man. It's on my list, though. I'll say that. It's on my list. Heavy metal. I don't know why I said that. Heat metal. Alteration reversible. By means of the heat metal spell, the druid is able to excite the molecules of ferocious metal, iron alloys, or steel, and thus cause the affected metal to become hot. On the first round of the spell, the effect is merely to cause the metal to become very warm and uncomfortable to the touch, and this is also the effect on the last melee round of the spell's duration. The second and sixth, next to the last round, effect is to cause blisters and damage. The third, fourth, and fifth rounds of the metal become searing hot, causing disability and damage to exposed flesh, as shown below. Let me show you this right here. So this is the metal temperature, the damage you take, and if there's a disability, what it is. That's interesting. Note also that materials such as wood, leather, or flammable cloth will smolder and burn if exposed to searing hot metal, and such materials will then cause searing damage to exposed flesh on the next round. Fire resistance, potion, or ring, or a protection of fire spell totally negates the effects of a heat metal spell, as will immersion in water or snow, or exposure to a cold or ice storm spell. For each level of experience of the druid casting the spell, he or she is able to affect the metal of one man-sized creature, i.e., arms and armor, or a single mass of metal equal to 500 gold pieces in weight cumulative. The reverse, chill metal, counters a heat metal spell, or else causes metal to act as follows. And let's see, metal temperature, any damage done, and disability if necessary. The chill metal spell is countered by a resist cold spell, or by any great heat, i.e. proximity to a blazing fire, not a mere torch, a magical flaming sword, a wall of fire, etc. Locate plants. Divination. When this spell is used by a druid, he or she is able to locate any desired type of plant within the area of effect. Note, the plant type must be a singular and concentrated upon. The spell's area of effect centers on and moves with the druid. Obscurement. Alteration. This spell causes a misty vapor to arise around the druid. It persists in this locale for 4 rounds per level of experience of the druid casting the spell, and it reduces visibility of any sort, including infravision, to 2 feet to 8 feet, 2d4. The area of effect is a cubic progression based on the druid's level of experience. A 1-inch cube at first level, a 2-inch cube at second level, 3-inch cube at third level, and so on. Underground, the height of the vapor is restricted to 1 inch, although the length and breadth of the cloud is not so limited. A strong wind will cut the duration of an obscurement spell by 75%. Produce flame. Alteration. A bright flame, equal in brightness to a torch, springs forth from the druid's palm when he or she casts a Produce Flame spell. The magical flame lasts for 2 melee rounds for each level of the druid casting the spell. The flame does not harm the druid's person, but it is hot, and it will cause combustion on inflammable materials, paper, cloth, dry wood, oil, etc. The druid is capable of hurling the magical flame as a missile with a range of 4 inches. The flame will flash on impacting, ignite combustibles within a 3-foot diameter of its center of impact, and then extinguish itself. The druid can cause it to go out at any time he or she desires, but fire caused by the flame cannot be so extinguished. Trip. Enchantment Charm. The spellcaster must use a length of vine, a stick, pole, rope, or similar object to cast this magic upon. The trip spell causes the object to rise slightly off the ground or floor it is resting on, and trip creatures crossing it if they fail to make their saving throw versus magic. Note that only as many creatures can be tripped as are actually stepping across the magicked object, i.e. a 3-foot-long piece of rope could trip only one man-sized creature. Creatures moving at a very rapid pace, running, when tripped, will take 1 to 6 d6 hit points of damage and be stunned for 2 to 5 d4 plus 1 rounds if the surface they fall upon is very hard. But if it is turf or non-hard, they will merely be stunned for 2 to 5 segments. Very large creatures, such as elephants, will not be affected by a trip. The object, magicked, will continue to trip all creatures passing over it, including the spellcaster, for as long as the spell duration lasts. Creatures aware of the object and its potential add +4 to their saving throw when crossing it. The object is 80% undetectable without magical means of detection. Second edition was my bag too. I played that more than any other edition. Warp Wood, Alteration. When the spell is cast, the druid causes a volume of wood to bend and warp permanently, destroying its straightness, form, and strength. The range of the Warp Wood spell is 1 inch for each level of experience of the druid casting it. It effects approximately a 15-inch shaft of wood for up to 1 inch diameter per level of the druid. Thus, at first level, a druid might be able to warp a hand axe handle or 4 crossbow bolts. At 5th level, he or she could warp the shaft of a typical magical spear. Note that the boards or planks can also be affected, causing a door to be sprung or a boat or ship to leak. All right, we're on 3rd level spells. Call Lightning. Oh yeah, we all love this spell. Alteration. When a Call Lightning spell is cast, there must be a storm of some sort in the area. A rain shower, clouds and wind, hot and cloudy conditions, or even a tornado. The druid is then able to call down bolts of lightning from the sky to the ground. Each bolt will cause damage equal to 2 8-sided dice, 2d8, plus 1, like die, d8, for each level of experience of the druid casting the spell. Thus, a 4th level druid calls down a 6-die, 6d8 bolt. The bolt of lightning flashes down in a perpendicular stroke at whatever distance the spellcaster decides, up to the 36-inch radial distance maximum. Any creature within a 1-inch radius of the path or the point where the lightning strikes will take full damage unless a saving throw is made, in which case only 1/2 damage is taken. Full or half damage refers to the number of the hit dice of the lightning bolt, i.e., if it is of 8 dice strength, the victim will take either 8 die, 8d8, or 4 die, 4d8. If the saving throw is made of damage, the druid is able to call 1 bolt of lightning every 10 melee rounds, 1 turn, to a maximum number of turns equal to the level of experience he or she has attained, i.e., 1 bolt per turn for each level of experience. Note, this spell is normally usable outdoors only. That's a great spell. Cure Disease, Necromantic, Reversible. This spell is the same as the 3rd level cleric spell, Cure Disease, with the exception that the druid must have mistletoe to affect it. It is reversible to cause disease also. Hold Animal, Enchantment, Charm. By means of this spell, the druid holds 1 to 4 animals rigid. Animals affected are normal or giant-sized mammals, birds, or reptiles, but not monsters such as centaurs, gorgons, harpies, naga, etc. That is, apes, bears, crocodiles, dogs, eagles, foxes, giant beavers are similar animals are subject to this spell. The hold lasts for 2 melee rounds per levels of experience of the druid casting it. It is up to the druid as to how many animals he or she wishes to hold with the spell, but the greater the number, the better chance each will have of not being affected by the spell. Note that a maximum body weight of 400 pounds, 100 pounds with respect to non-mammals, animal per level, of experience of the druid can be affected, i.e., an 8th level druid can affect up to 3,200 pound mammals, or a like number of 800 pound non-mammals, such as birds or reptiles. Each animal gets a saving throw. If only one is the subject of the spell, it has a penalty of -4 in its die roll to save. If 2 are subject, they each receive a penalty of -2 on their die rolls. If 3 are subject, they each receive a penalty of 1 on their die rolls. If 4 are subject, each makes a normal saving throw. Neutralize Poison. Reversible. This spell is the same as the 4th level Cleric Neutralize Poison spell. Plant Growth. Alteration. With a Plant Growth spell, when it's cast by the Druid, he or she causes normal vegetation to grow, entwine, and entangle to form a thicket or jungle, which creatures must hack or force a way through at a movement rate of 1 inch per or 2 inches per with respect to larger than man-sized creatures. Note that the area must have bush and trees in it in order to allow the spell to go into effect. Briars, bushes, creepers, lianas, roots, saplings, thistles, thorn, trees, vines, and weeds become so thick and overgrown in the area of effect as to form a barrier. The area of effect is 2 inches by 2 inches square per level of experience of the Druid, in any square or rectangle shape the Druid decides upon at the time of the spell casting. Thus, an 8th level Druid can affect a maximum area of 16 inches by 16 inches square, a 32-inch by 8-inch rectangle, a 64-inch by 4-inch rectangle, a 128-inch by 2-inch rectangle, etc. The spell's effects persist in the area until it is cleared by labor, fire, or such magical means as a dispel magic spell. Ragnarok, favorite Dragonlance character? Please, everyone, chime in. I think that's a great question. For me, I think it's got to be Tanis. Yeah. Protection from fire, abjuration. The effect of the protection from fire spell differs according to the recipient of the magic, the druid or some other creature. If the spell is cast upon the druid, it confers complete invulnerability to normal fires, torches, bonfires, oil fires, and the like, and to exposure to magical fires such as demon fire, burning hands, fiery dragon breath, fireball, fire seeds, fire storm, flame strike, hellhound breath, meteor swarm, pyro hydra breath, etc., until an accumulation of 12 hit points of potential damage per level of experience of the druid has been absorbed by the protection from fire spell, at which time the spell is negated. Otherwise, the spell lasts for 1 turn per level of experience of the druid. If the spell is cast upon another creature, it gives invulnerability to normal fire, gives a bonus of +4 on saving throw die rolls made versus fire attacks, and reduces damage sustained from magical fires by 50%. Pyrotechnics. Alteration. A pyrotechnics spell can have either of 2 effects. It produces a flashing and fiery burst of glowing colored aerial fireworks, which lasts for 1 segment per experience level of the druid casting the spell, and temporarily blinds those creatures in the area of effect, or under it, or within 12 inches of the area, and in any event in obstructed line of sight. Or it causes a thick writhing stream of smoke to arise from the fire source of the spell and form a choking cloud, which lasts for 1 round per experience level of the druid casting it, covering a roughly globular area from the ground or floor up, or conforming to the shape of a confined area, which totally obscures vision beyond 2 feet. The spell requires a fire of some sort in range. The area of pyrotechnics effect is 10 times the volume of the fire source with respect to fireworks, 100 times in respect to smoke. In either case, the fire source is immediately extinguished by the employment of the spell. That's a great concealment spell. I never really knew that about it. Snare. Enchantment. Charm. This spell enables a druid to make a snare, which is 90% undetectable without magical aid. The snare can be made from any supple vine, a thong, or a rope. A thong. Can you imagine? Just never mind. All right. When the snare spell is cast upon it, the cord-like object blends with the background of its location. One end of the snare is tied in a loop, which will contract about 1 or more of the limbs of any creature stepping inside the circle. Note that the head of a worm or snake could also be thus ensnared. If a strong and supple tree is nearby, the snake will be fastened to it, and the dwemer of this spell will cast will cause it to bend and then straighten when the loop is triggered, thus causing 1 to 6 hit points of damage to the creature trapped and lifting it off the ground by the trapped member or strangling it if the head or neck triggered the snare. If no such sapling or tree is available, the cord-like object will tighten upon the members and then enwrap the entire creature, doing no damage but tightly binding it. The snare is magical, so for 1 hour it is breakable only by Storm Giant or greater strength, 23. Each hour thereafter, the snare material loses magic so as to become 1 point more breakable per hour, 22 after 2 hours, 21 after 3, 20 after 4, until 6 full hours have elapsed. At that time, 18 strength will break the bonds. After 12 hours have elapsed, the materials of the snare lose all of the magical properties, and the loop opens, freeing anyone it had held. The druid must have a snake skin and a piece of sinew from a strong animal to weave it into cord-like object from which he or she will make the snare. Only mistletoe is otherwise needed. Maybe the best way to deliver a wedgie to someone wearing a thong. I don't know. What do you think? Stone Shape, Alteration. This spell is exactly the same as the 5th level magic user spell Stone Shape, except as noted above, and for the requirement of mistletoe as an additional component to enable a druid to cast the spell. Summon Insects. When a Summon Insects spell is cast by a druid, he or she attracts flying insects 70% of the time. That exact insects called will be bees, biting flies, hornets, or wasps, if flying insects are indicated, or biting ants or pinching beetles, if non-flying insects are determined. A cloud of the flying type, or a swarm of the crawling sort, will appear after the spell is cast. They will attack any creature the druid points to. The attacked creature will sustain 2 points of damage per melee round, and it can do nothing but attempt to fend off the insects during the time it is so attacked. The summoned insects can be caused to attack another opponent, but there will be at least a 1-round delay while they leave the former recipient and attack the new victim. And crawling insects can travel only about 12 feet per round, maximum speed over smooth ground. It is possible to underground situations that the druid could summon 1 to 4 giant ants by means of the spell, but the possibility is only 30% unless giant ants are nearby. The materials needed for the spell are mistletoe, a flower petal, and a bit of mud or wet clay. Tree, Alteration. By means of this spell, the druid is able to assume the form of a small living tree or shrub, or that of a large dead tree trunk with but a few limbs. Although the closest inspection will not reveal that the plant is actually a druid, and for all normal tests, he or she is in fact a tree or shrub, the druid is able to observe all that goes on around his or her person as if he or she were in human form. The spellcaster may remove the Dwemer at any time he or she desires, instantly changing from plant to human form, and having full capability of undertaking any action normally possible to the druid. Note that all clothing and gear worn, carried, change with the druid. The material components of the spell are mistletoe and a twig from a tree. Did any of you see The Last Unicorn? There's this really, first of all, it's a great animation film from the 70s. Lots of really fun music, great story, great animation. But there's this really funny moment where this, sort of magician coming into his own casts a spell on a tree, and it turns into this sort of tree female that ends up falling in love with Schmedrick, the magician, as she's just like forces him to motorboat her as it's hugging and say, "I love you." Really funny. It's the most absurd moment of a tree turning into a partial humanoid type creature, but it's totally worth watching the film. I mean, there's other reasons to watch that great film, of course, but that's definitely one of them. This spell just reminded me of that. Water breathing, alteration, reversible. The recipient of a water-breathing spell is able to freely breathe underwater for the duration of the spell, i.e. 6 turns for each level experience of the druid casting the spell. The reverse, air breathing, allows water-breathing creatures to comfortably survive in the atmosphere for an equal duration. All right, we are at 4th level spells. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get through all 7 levels. of the Druid spells today. Animal Summoning 1. Conjuration, Summoning. By means of this spell, the Druid calls up to 8 animals of whatever sort the Druid names when the summoning is made, if such type are within the spell range. These animals can have more than 4 hit dice each. The animals summoned will aid the Druid by whatever means they possess, staying until a fight is over, a specific mission is finished, the Druid is safe, he or she sends them away, etc. The Druid may try 3 times to summon 3 different sorts of animals, i.e. suppose that wild dogs are first summoned to no avail, then hawks are unsuccessfully called, and finally the Druid calls for wild horses, which may or may not be within summoning range. Your referee will determine probabilities if the presence of a summoned animal type is not known. Other than various sorts of giant animals, fantastic animals, or monsters cannot be summoned by this spell, i.e. no chimera, dragons, gorgons, manticores, etc. Call woodland beings. Conjuration, Summoning. By means of this spell, the Druid is able to summon certain woodland creatures to his or her location. Naturally, this spell will only work outdoors, but not necessarily only in wooden areas. The Druid begins the incantation, and the spell must be continued uninterrupted until some called creature appears or 2 turns have elapsed. The verbalization and somatic gestures are easy, so this is not particularly exhausting to the spellcaster. Only one type of the following sorts of beings can be summoned by the spell, and they will come only if they are within range of the call. 2d8 brownies, 1-4 centaurs, 1-4 dryads, 1-8 pixies, 1-4 satyrs, 1-6 sprites, 1 treant, 1 unicorn. Your referee will consult his outdoor map or base the probability of any such creature being within spell range upon the nature of the area the Druid is in at the time of spell casting. The creatures called by the spell are entitled to a saving throw versus magic at -4 to avoid the summons. Any woodland being answering the call will be favorably disposed to the spellcaster and give whatever aid it is capable of. However, if the caller or members of the caller's party are of evil alignment, the creatures are entitled to another saving throw versus magic, this time at a +4, when they came within 1 inch of the Druid or other evil character with him or her. And these beings will seek immediately to escape if the saving throw is successful. In any event, if the Druid requests that a summoned creature engage in combat on behalf of the Druid, they are required to make a loyalty reaction score based on the Druid's charisma and whatever dealings he or she has had with the called creatures. The material components of the spell are a pine cone and 8 holly berries. Control temperature, 10-foot radius. Alteration. When the spell is cast by the Druid, the temperature surrounding the Druid can be altered by 9 degrees Fahrenheit per level of experience of the spell caster, either upwards or downwards. Thus, a 10th level Druid could raise the surrounding temperature from 1 to 90 degrees, or lower it by 1 to 90 degrees. The spell lasts for a number of turns equals to 4 plus the level of experience of the Druid, i.e. when cast by a 10th level Druid, the spell persists for 14 turns. That's a huge leap from 1 to 90 degrees? Jeez. Cure serious wounds. Necromantic. Reversible. This spell is the same as the 4th level cleric Cure Serious Wounds spell, with the exception of the fact that the spell requires the use of any sort of mistletoe. Dispel Magic. Abjuration. Except as noted above, this spell is the same as the 3rd level cleric Dispel Magic spell. Hallucinatory Forest. Illusion Phantasm. Reversible. By casting this spell, the Druid causes the appearance of an hallucinatory forest to come into existence. The illusionary forest appears to be perfectly natural and is indistinguishable from a real forest. Other Druids, as well as such creatures as centaurs, dryads, green dragons, nymphs, satyrs, and treants, will recognize the forest for what it is. All other creatures will believe it's there, and movement and order of march will be affected accordingly. The hallucinatory forest will remain until it is magically dispelled by a reverse of the spell, or a dispel magic. The area's shape is either rectangular or square in general, at least 4 inches deep, and in whatever location the Druid casting the spell desires. The forest can be of less than maximum area if the Druid wishes. Once one of the edges will appear up to 8 inches away from the druid, according to the desire of the spellcaster. Hold Plant Enchantment Charm. The Hold Plant spell affects vegetable matter as follows. 1. It causes ambulatory vegetation to cease moving. 2. It prevents vegetable matter from entwining, grasping, closing, or growing. 3. It prevents vegetable matter from making any sound or movement which is not caused by wind. The spell effects apply to all forms of vegetation, including parasitic and fungoid types, and those magically animated or otherwise magically empowered. It affects such monsters as green slime, molds of any sort, shambling mounds, shriekers, treants, etc. The duration of a Hold Plant spell is 1 melee round per level of experience of the druid casting the spell. It affects from 1 to 4 plants, or from 4 to 16 square yards of small ground growth, such as grass or mold. If but 1 plant, or 4 square yards, is chosen as the target for the spell by the druid, the saving throw of the plant or area of plant growth is made at a -4 on the die. If 2 plants, or 8 square yards, are the target, saving throws are at -2. If 3 plants, or 12 square yards, are the target, saving throws are at -1. And if the maximum of 4 plants, or 16 square yards of area, are the target, saving throws are normal. Plant Door Alteration. The Plant Door spell opens a magical portal or passageway through trees, undergrowth, thickets, or any similar growth, even growth of a magical nature. The Plant Door is open only to the druid who casts the spell, druids of a higher level, or dryads. The door even enables the druid to enter into a solid tree trunk and remain hidden there until the spell ends. If the tree is cut down or burned, the druid must leave before the tree falls or is consumed, or else he or she is killed also. The duration of the spell is 1 turn per level of experience of the druid casting. If the druid opts to stay within an oak, its spell lasts for 9 times longer. If an ash tree, it lasts 3 times as long. The path created by the spell is up to 4 feet wide, 8 feet high, and 12 feet per level of experience of the druid long. Welcome to Chat Jolly. Just doing a read-through of the Player's Handbook of Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. This is the original AD&D game that Dragonlance came out of, which is the reason of my doing this little reading here as a bonus episode. Produce Fire. Alteration reversible. By means of this spell, the druid caused a common type fire of up to 12 feet per side in area boundary. While it lasts but a single round, the fire produced by the spell will cause 1 to 4 hit points of damage on creatures within its area, and it will ignite combustible materials such as cloth, oil, paper, parchment, wood, and the like, so as to cause continued burning. The reverse quench fire will extinguish any normal fire, coals, oil, tallow, wax, wood, etc., within the area of effect. Protection from lightning. Abjuration. This spell is exactly the same as the 3rd level Protection from Fire spell, except that it applies to electrical and lightning attacks. Repel insects. When this spell is cast, the druid creates an invisible barrier to all sorts of insects, and normal sorts will not approach within 10 feet of the druid while this spell is in effect. Although any giant insects with 2 or more hit dice will do so if they make a saving throw versus magic, and even those which do so will sustain 1 to 6 hit points of damage from the passing of the magical barrier. Note that the spell does not in any way affect arachnids, myriapods, and similar creatures. It affects only true insects. The material components of the Repel Insect spell are mistletoe and one of the following: several crushed marigold flowers, a whole crushed leek, 7 crushed stinging nettles, leaves, or a small lump of resin from a camphor tree. So your favorite character is Raistlin or Cyan Bloodbane. Wow. Okay. All right. I've never heard anyone say that the dragon, Cyan or Cyan, is their favorite. Hey, Freddie, thanks for joining live, man. What did you think about Raistlin / Fistandantilus like terrorizing him and scaring him away so quickly in Dragons of Winter Night? Like, that to me seemed way too fast, and I don't know, it just made him kind of look like a punk of a dragon. he was scared away so quickly. What do you think? All right, let's see. Speak with animals, alteration, except as noted above, and that the material component is that typically druidic, mistletoe, etc. This spell is the same as the 4th level cleric spell, Speak with Plants. We are at 5th level spells now. Animal growth, alteration, reversible. When this spell is cast, the druid causes all animals up to a maximum of 8 within a 2-inch square area to grow to twice their normal size. The effect of this growth are double hit dice with result improvement in attack potential and double damage in combat. The spell lasts for 2 melee rounds for each level of experience of the druid casting the spell. Note that the spell is particularly useful in conjunction with a charm person or animal or a speak with animals spell. The reverse reduces animal size by 1/2 and likewise reduces hit dice, attack damage, etc. Animal Summoning 2. Conjuring, Summoning. This spell is the same in duration and effect as the 4th level Animal Summoning 1 spell, except that up to 6 animals of no more than 8 hit die each can be called, or 12 animals of no more than 4 hit die each can be called. Anti-Plant Shell, Abjuration. The Anti-Plant Shell spell creates an invisible barrier which keeps out all creatures or missiles of living vegetable material. Thus, the druid and any creatures with the shell is protected from attacking plants or vegetable creatures such as shambling mounds or treants. The spell lasts for 1 turn per level of experience of the druid. Commune with Nature, Divination. This spell enables the druid to become one with nature in the area, thus being empowered with knowledge of the surrounding territory. For each level of experience of the druid, he or she may know one fact, i.e., the ground ahead, left or right, the plants ahead, left or right, the minerals ahead, left or right, the water courses or bodies of water ahead, left or right, the people dwelling ahead, left or right, etc. The spell is effective only in outdoor settings and operates in a radius of 1/2 mile for each level of experience of the druid casting the Commune with Nature spell. Have you heard about any of the fantasy shows you're looking forward? You're excited for Wheel of Time, the animated Critical Role for being... you know what I'm excited for is the prequel of Game of Thrones. I really, really enjoyed up until the last season of Game of Thrones. And so I'm kind of excited to see where they're going to go with that as the prequel. But there's also supposed to be multiple versions of that. Wheel of Time was a series I was always recommended, but I never got into. So I should probably get into it and read it because it's supposed to be really good. There's a bunch. I'm interested to see what the Netflix Dungeons and Dragons series is like. Because let's be honest, the D&D films have all been stinkers. And so if they could pull off... And here's something I don't understand. How are all of the D&D films so bad when, like, the Lord of the Rings stuff? Oh, and the Lord of the Rings series that on Amazon Prime I'm really looking forward to that as well. When they're all so good, like, I don't know. It's like they go to producers that don't really care about the source material, or they don't really care if the story or the characters are great or endearing. They just think that because you like D&D or fantasy, you're going to go watch it and like it, when that clearly is not the fact at all. It drives me crazy. They need professionals in there. They need the Favreau of fantasy is what they really need to get in and do some great stuff. Because if you look at the dragon in Game of Thrones and some of those final sequences of the dragon flying around and stuff, and you don't think of Dragonlance, and you don't think that would be an amazing film, seeing like dragon battles with just TV technology, just TV series technology? It would be amazing. I'm just so excited about it. It would be seriously amazing nowadays. So I don't get it. And maybe that explains it, Jolly. They just weren't fans. And so they just, it was a payday, I guess. I don't know. Cyan was a coward of a dragon, but that is what kept him alive so long. Yeah. And he did. And he did. Poor Sylvanesty. They just got screwed over over and over again. And you could say they deserve it because they're so, uppity. They're just looking down their noses at every other race on Krynn. And so, they kind of asked to get screwed over so badly. But even after the War of the Lands and the Chaos War, they were kicked back out by the Minotaurs. Like, if you're a Sylvanesti elf, you have known nothing but despair your entire life. Even in, like, the Age of Might. If you were a magic-using elf or you were just an elf, Istar was wildly a racist empire. And they were bigoted toward any type of magic use at all. So, yeah, the elves have gotten a bad rap, man. All throughout the series, they've just had nothing but misery and sorrow. Unless you go all the way back to Starbirth, when they were just like the chosen species of good, And Paladin just looked down at them and smiled, and they looked up and smiled, and it was happiness, and I don't know, whatever. They just got screwed over and over again. All right, commune with nature. Divination. This spell enables the druid to become one with nature in the area, thus being empowered. Oh wait, I already did that. Sorry. Control winds. Alteration. By means of a control winds spell, the druid is able to alter wind force in the area of effect. For each level of his or her experience, the druid is able to increase or decrease wind force by 3 miles per hour. Winds in excess of 30 miles per hour drive small flying creatures, those eagle-sized and under, from the skies and severely inhibit missile discharge. Winds in excess of 45 miles per hour drive even man-sized flying creatures from the skies. Winds in excess of 60 miles per hour drive all flying creatures from the skies and uproot trees of small size, knock down wooden structures, tear off roofs, etc. Winds in excess of 75 miles per hour are of hurricane force and cause devastation to all save the strongest stone constructions. A wind above 30 miles per hour makes sailing difficult. Above 45 miles per hour causes minor ship damage. Above 60 miles per hour endangers ships, and above 75 miles per hour sinks ships. There is an eye of 4-inch radius around the druid where the wind is calm. A higher level druid can use a control winds spell to counter the effects of a like spell cast by a lower level druid. Control weather. This spell remains in force for 1 turn for each level of experience of the druid casting it. Once the spell is cast, the wind force increases by 3 miles per hour per round until maximum speed is attained. When the spell is exhausted, the force of the wind diminishes at the same rate. Note that while the spell can be used in underground places, the eye will shrink in direct proportion to any confinement of the wind effect. I.e., if the area of effect is a 48-inch radius and the confined space allows only a 46-inch radius, the eye will be a 2-inch radius. And any space under 44-inch radius will completely eliminate the eye and subject the spellcaster to the effects of the wind. I think you might be right. I think they were tortured a little bit by the sea dragons, the various forms of the sea dragons, Jolly. But yeah, they suffered the least in all of the War of the Lands and arguably the Chaos War, because they were just sort of under the sea, under the sea, darling, it's better downward. Okay, I won't. Sorry. I learned that song when I was in like 7th grade for a girl who liked that film. And so in order to impress her like an idiot, I learned the song, and now I can't get it out of my head. And I'm in my mid-40s. So, yeah, things girls will do to you. Insect plague. Except as noted above, and other than the fact that the material component needed for the spell is mistletoe, or the holly or oak leaves substitute, the spell is the same as the 5th level cleric insect plague spell. Pass plant. By using this spell, a druid is able to enter a tree and move from inside it to another of the same type, which lies in approximately the direction desired by the spell user and is within the range shown below. So let's show this range here. It's right here. Type of tree listed and range of effect. Sort of jumping from plant to plant. The tree entered and that receiving the druid must be of the same type, living, and of girth at least equal to the druid. Note that if the druid enters a tree, suppose an ash, and wishes to pass normal as far as possible, 54 inches, but the only appropriate ash in range is south, the druid will pass to the ash in the south. The pass plant spell functions so that the movement takes only one segment, 6 seconds, of a round. The druid may, at his or her option, remain within the receiving tree for a maximum of 1 round per level of experience. Otherwise, he or she may step forth immediately. Should no like tree be in range, the druid simply remains within the tree, does not pass anywhere, and must step forth in the applicable number of rounds. See plant door for effects of chopping or burning such a tree. Excuse me. Sticks to snakes. Alteration reversible. Except as noted above, and for the fact that the material component for the spell is typical for druids, this is the same as the 4th level cleric Sticks to Snakes spell. Transmute rock to mud. Alteration reversible. This spell turns natural rock of any sort into an equal volume of mud. The depth of the mud can never exceed 1/2 its length and or breadth. If it is cast upon a rock, for example, the rock affected will collapse into mud. Creatures unable to levitate, fly, or otherwise free themselves from the mud will sink and suffocate, save for lightweight creatures which could normally pass across such ground. The mud will remain until a Dispel Magic spell or a reverse of this spell, Mud to Rock, restores its substance, but not necessarily its form. Evaporation will turn the mud to normal dirt from 1 to 6 days per cubic 1 inch being required. The exact time depends on exposure to sun, wind, and normal drainage. The Mud to Rock reverse will harden normal mud into soft stone, sandstone, or similar material permanently unless magically changed. Wall of Fire. Evocation. The Wall of Fire spell brings forth a blazing curtain of magical fire of shimmering color. Yellow-green or amber in case of druidical magic. The Wall of Fire inflicts 4 to 16 hit points of damage, plus 1 hit point of damage per level of spell caster upon any creature passing through it. Creatures within 1 inch of the wall take 2 to 8 hit points of damage. Those within 2 inches take 1 to 4 hit points of damage. Creatures especially subject to fire may take additional damage, and undead always take twice normal damage. Only the side of the wall away from the spellcaster will inflict damage. The opaque wall of fire lasts for as long as the druid concentrates on maintaining it, or 1 round per level of experience of the druid in the event he or she does not wish to concentrate upon it. The spell creates a sheet of flame up to 2 inches square per level of the spellcaster, or as a ring with a radius of up to 1/2 inch per level of experience from the druid to its flames at a height of 2 inches. The former is stationary, while the latter moves as the druid moves. That is the end of 5th level spells. All right. So you guys are saying Dragonlance should be given another shot in animation, but on Netflix. That'd be cool. An anthology series would be awesome. I really want a series. I don't want a film. I want to be able to live with these characters for a while, you know? I mean, you give me an 8 episode series arc, you know, that's 8 hours at, you know, on average, if, you know, assuming they're like hour long or 45 minutes long or something like that. But, you know, you're talking up to 8 hours rather than up to 2 hours of a film. And I would much prefer that, because if we're being honest, the strength of Dragonlance is in the story and the character arcs, not necessarily on the world as it is, because it's just a war-torn fantasy world with very low magic. So, you know, I don't know. I just much prefer seeing more time and maybe a little less budget than otherwise. But, I mean, nowadays, series are getting tons of money thrown at them. Just tons of money. Like film levels of money. So, you know, who knows? Who knows what could happen? 6th level spells. Well, it's Benjamin, it's powerful magic, right? But there's no cleric magic starting out at all. So you got to sort of strike that down. It's in a time when you can never have more than 18th level characters. So you're not going to have super powerful magical people running around. And the knowledge of arcana magic itself is restricted to those in the Towers of High Sorcery, which are, only invited in after they've taken a test and succeeded. So it's very contained. You don't have tons of like massive, high level magical armor and swords running around. It's all like hereditary type stuff. So, it's a little bit different. In Legends, it is a bit different because that's when they learned their lesson, the gods, about letting people become too powerful. And they had to, throw a mountain on the earth to stop it. And even then, they didn't really, if you're talking the, Raistlin character. So, they learned their lesson. I would really love to see a series, if we're being, just sort of breaking away from this for a minute. I would love to see a series set in the Age of Might, at like the height of Istar era, and see characters, because that's when, the Knights of Solamnia are at their height. The Towers of High Sorcery, all of them are there. They're all at their height of their power. Istar is at its height of its power. It could be a political drama. It could have tons of action and adventure because, there was tons of different economic wars being fought regionally throughout all of Ansalon. It could be really, really interesting. Anyway, I would love it. And, we haven't seen much happen then. We had the Legends trilogy, which was fantastic. But outside of that, it's really ripe for exploration, storytelling. I don't think they could. I think he got too powerful. He sort of sapped. He used Fistandantilus, who ironically thought he was using Raistlin, and just sort of leapfrogged him in power. And because he was manipulating time, I think the gods at the time didn't realize what was happening completely until it was too late. And then they, again, the cataclysm happened and they sort of reset things. And so it sort of prevented it from happening again. And then the Chaos War happened and the High God came in and sort of smacked everyone. And I don't know. Legend of Human would be great. Yeah, you're right. That'd be awesome. All right, 6th level spells. I think this is going to be my last. Yeah, I'll do 6th level. Animal Summoning 3, Conjuration Summoning. This spell is the same in duration and effect as the 4th level Animal Summoning 1 spell, except that up to 4 animals of no more than 16 hit die each can be summoned, or 8 of no more than 8 hit die, or 16 creatures of no more than 4 hit die each can be summoned. Anti-Animal Shell, Abjuration. By casting this spell, the druid brings into being a hemispherical force field, which prevents the entrance of any sort of animal matter of normal, not magical nature. Thus, a giant would be kept out, but an undead could pass through the shell of force, as could such monsters as aerial servants, demons, devils, etc. The anti-animal shell lasts for 1 turn for each level of experience the druid has attained. Conjure Fire Elemental. Conjuration Summoning, Reversible. Upon casting a Conjure Fire Elemental spell, the druid opens a special gate to the elemental plane of fire, and a strong fire elemental, see Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monster Manual, is summoned by the vicinity of the spell caster. It is 85% likely that a 16-die elemental will appear, 9% likely that 2 to 4 salamanders will come, a 4% chance exists that an Afridi will come, and a 2% chance exists that a huge fire elemental of 21 to 24 hit die, d4 plus 20, will appear. Because of the relationship of druids to natural and elemental forces, the conjuring druid need not fear that the elemental force summoned will turn on him or her, so concentration upon the activities of the force summoned will... So concentration upon the activities of the fire elemental or other creatures summoned, or the protection of a magical fire is not necessary. The elemental summoned will help the druid however possible, including attacking opponents of the druid. The fire elemental or other creature summoned remains for a maximum of 1 turn per level of the druid casting the spell, or until it is sent back by attack, a dispel magic spell, or the reverse of the spell, dismiss fire elemental. Only a druid can dismiss summoned salamanders, Ifriti, or ultra-powerful elementals. Cure critical wounds. Necromantic, reversible. This spell is the same as the 5th level cleric Cure critical wounds spell, with the exception of the fact that the spell requires the use of any sort of mistletoe. Feeble Mind. Enchantment, charm. A spell which is solely for employment against those of persons or creatures who use magic spells, Feeble Mind causes the victim's brain to become that of a moronic child. The victim remains in this state until a heal, restoration, or wish spell is used to do away with the effects. The spell is of such a nature that the probability of it affecting the target creature is generally enhanced, i.e., saving throws are lowered. So let me show you this real quick. So this is a type of spell used by the target or creature, and the saving throw adjustment. Note that the spell has no material component. Fire Seeds. Conjuration. The spell of Fire Seeds creates special missiles or timed incendiaries, which burn with great heat. The druid may hurl these seeds up to 4 inches or place them to ignite upon a command word. Acorns become fire seed missiles, while hollyberries are used as the timed incendiaries. The spell creates up to 4 acorn fire seeds or 8 hollyberry fire seeds. The acorns burst upon striking their target, causing 2 to 16 hit points, 2d8, of damage and igniting any combustible materials within a 1-inch diameter of the point of impact. Although the hollyberries used are too light to make effective missiles, they can be placed or tossed up to 6 feet away to burst into flames upon a word of command. The berries ignite, causing 1 to 8 hit points damage, d8, in any creature in a 1/2-inch diameter burst area, and their fire ignites combustibles in the burst area. The command range for hollyberry fire seed is 4 inches. All fire seeds lose their power after the expiration of 1 turn per level of experience of the druid casting the spell, i.e. a 13th level druid has fire seeds which will remain potent for a maximum of 13 turns after their creation. Targets of acorn fire seeds must be struck by the missile. If a saving throw is made, creatures within the burst area take only 1/2 damage, but creatures struck directly always take full damage. Note that no mistletoe or other material components beyond acorns or hollyberries are needed for this spell. Transport via plants, alteration. By means of this spell, the druid is able to enter any large plant and pass any distance to a plant of the same species in a single round regardless of the distance separating the two. The entry plant must be alive, the destination plant need not be familiar to the druid, but it also must be alive. If the druid is uncertain of the destination plant, he or she need merely determine direction and distance, and the transport via plant spell will move him or her as near as possible to the desired location. There is a basic 20% chance, reduced 1% per level of experience of the druid, that the transport will deliver the druid to an allied species of plant from 1 to 100 miles removed from the desired destination plant. Wow. If a particular desired plant destination plant is desired, but the plant is not living, the spell fails, and the druid must come forth from the entrance plant within 24 hours. Harm to a plant housing a druid can affect the druid. See plant door. Turn wood. Alteration. When this spell is cast, waves of force roll forth from the druid, moving in the direction he or she faces, and causing all wooden objects in the path of the spell to be pushed away from the druid to limit the area of effect. Wooden objects above 3 inches diameter, which are fixed firmly, will not be affected, but loose objects, movable mantles, siege towers, etc., will move back. Objects under 3 inches diameter, which are fixed, will splinter and break, and the pieces will move with the wave of force. Thus, objects such as wooden shields, spears, wooden weapons, shafts and hafts, and arrows and bolts will be pushed back, dragging those carrying with them. And if a spear is planted in order to prevent this forced movement, it will splinter. The Turn Wood spell lasts for 4 rounds per level of experience of the druid casting it, and the waves of force will continue to sweep down the set path for this period. The wooden objects in the area of effect are pushed back at a rate of 4 inches per melee round. The length of the path is 2 inches per level of the druid, i.e. a 14th level druid can cast a turn wood spell with an area of effect 12 inches wide by 28 inches long, and the spell would last for 56 rounds, 5.6 turns. As usual, the above assumes the druid is using greater mistletoe than casting the spell. Note that after casting the spell, the path is set, and the druid may then do other things or go elsewhere without affecting the spell's power. Wall of Thorns. Conjuration, Summoning. The Wall of Thorns spell creates a barrier of very tough, pliable green tangled brush, bearing needle-sharp thorns as long as a person's finger. Any creature breaking through, or merely impacting upon the Wall of Thorns, takes 8 hit points of damage, plus an additional amount of hit points equal to the creature's armor class, i.e., 10 or fewer additional hit points of damage, with negative armor class subtracting from the base 8 hit points of damage. Any creature within the area of effect of the spell, when it is cast, is considered to have impacted on the Wall of Thorns and, in addition, must break through to gain movement space. The damage is based on each 1-inch thickness of the barrier. If the Wall of Thorns is chopped at, it will take at least 4 turns to cut a path through a 1-inch thickness. Normal fire will not harm the barrier, but magical fires will burn away the barrier in 2 turns, with the effects of creating a wall of fire while doing so. See Wall of Fire spell. The nearest edge of the Wall of Thorns appears up to 8 inches distant from the druid, as he or she desires. The spell lasts for 1 turn for each level of experience of the druid casting it, and covers an area of 10 cubic inches per level of the caster in whatever form the caster desires. Thus, a 14th level druid could create a Wall of Thorns 7 inches long by 2 inches high or deep by 1 inch deep or high, and 1 inch high by 1 inch wide by 14 inches long wall to block a dungeon passage or any other sort of shape that suited his or her needs. And the last spell in 6th level spells is Weather Summoning, Conjuration, Summoning. The Druidic Weather Summoning spell is similar to Control Weather spell of clerical nature. By casting the spell, the druid calls forth weather commensurate with the climate and season of the area he or she is in at the time. Thus, in spring, a tornado, thunderstorm, cold, sleet, storm, or hot weather could be summoned. In summer, a torrential rain, heat wave, hailstorm, etc. could be called. In autumn, hot or cold weather, fog, sleet, etc. could be summoned. Winter allows great cold, blizzard, or thaw conditions to be summoned. Hurricane force winds can be summoned near coastal regions in the late winter or early spring. The summoned weather is not under the control of the druid. It might last but a single turn in the case of a tornado, or for hours or even days in other cases. The area of effect likewise varies from about 1 square mile to 100 or more square miles. Note that several druids can act in concert to greatly affect weather, controlling winds and or working jointly to summon very extreme weather conditions. Within 4 turns after the spell is cast, the trend of the weather to come will be apparent, i.e., clearing skies, gusts of warm or hot air, a chill breeze, overcast skies, etc. Summoned weather will arrive 6 to 12 turns, d12 plus 5, after the spell is cast. Anything less than greater mistletoe as the material component will sharply curtail the weather extremes desired. All right, and that is going to be it for me reading this. We're stopping at the 7th level spells. Whew. After an hour and a half, this starts to twist my tongue. So, sorry about that. Benjamin, I actually didn't mind 5th Age. It just focused more on story rather than roles and mathematics. And so, I didn't really mind it that much. I do prefer 2nd edition of all of the D&D editions, I think. And, 5th Age was just a nice break for that. Since they didn't really develop it out past Dragonlance as a campaign, we played it for a very long time. But I didn't really enjoy the 5th Age much as a game setting in Dragonlance. It was just a difficult time, I think. Having to reform your view of magic and everything. I did like the way they handled spells and stuff, though, because it was up to your imagination and the narrator as to determine difficulty and whether or not it worked. So you weren't confined like you are with these set spells. So I did enjoy that. I honestly don't remember him much. I must have blocked him out. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. I do appreciate it. That is it for this episode of Gaming Advanced in Dungeons and Dragons. We're ending on the 7th level Druid spells. We'll pick that up next time. Do you have any favorite Druid spells or Cleric spells that were covered in this episode? Have you ever even played a Druid in any of your games? And in the future, would you be interested in hearing the Dungeon Master's Guide being read? That's going to be much more of a technical read as well, sort of like reading stereo instructions. But feel free to email me at info@dragonlance-saga.com or just comment below. Thank you all so much for tuning in. I'd like to once again invite you to consider becoming a patron or member of this channel, and you can always pick up Dragonlance gaming materials using my affiliate link, all of which are in the description below. This channel is all about celebrating the wonderful world of the Dragonlance Saga, and I hope you'll join me in that celebration. Thank you again for watching. This has been Adam with Dragonlance Saga, and until next time, Slán Jafar.